In a small closed room, the consequences of a bloody confrontation are visible. There are many bodies and used shells scattered around. A mysterious female voice narrates that this has happened many, many times, and this probably won't be the last. Endless repetitions only cause fatigue. The main character, a brunette named Andy, walks through the streets of Marrakesh. Suddenly, a colleague named Booker speeds past her on a motorcycle and says that his employer, James Copley, a former CIA officer now working on his own, has contacted him. The case concerns a hostage situation in South Sudan. Andy reminds them that according to their policy, they shouldn't work twice for the same employer, as it's too risky. Yet, she concedes and agrees to go to the hotel to meet the rest of her colleagues. Checking in at the hotel, Booker mentions family business as the reason for his visit. Meanwhile, the tourists next to Andy take a selfie, and she notices that she was also in the photo. Andy politely offers to take a picture of them, skillfully deleting the unwanted photo from the smartphone. Longtime friends and colleagues named Joe and Nikki are waiting for them in one of the hotel rooms. They are clearly happy to see Booker and Andy after a long break. During the conversation, it becomes clear that Andy is their leader, and she is clearly against their participation in the new task, but she promises to meet and talk with the employer. During the meeting, Copley's employer reveals that he left the CIA 2 years ago due to the death of his wife. He then gets to the point and explains that militants attacked a school yesterday in South Sudan and took 17 children hostage. South Sudan asked for assistance from the US, but US leadership denied such operations to anyone who wasn't their strategic ally. But the CIA sometimes likes to bend the rules, so they turn to James. According to him, the matter is urgent, and he is willing to offer any amount of money for it. After thinking it over, Andy agrees and promises to issue an invoice after the mission. The helicopter takes the team to the operations site. After waiting for nightfall, they begin to act. After dealing with numerous guards, they enter the building, find the correct room, but unexpectedly fall into an ambush. A crowd of armed soldiers surrounds them on all sides and coldly fires all their weapons, leaving none of them alive. Deciding that the job is done, the soldiers disperse, but then something unusual happens. Demonstrating wonders of regeneration, the heroes' bodies immediately heal themselves, and they, as if nothing happened, return to their senses. Shocked opponents cannot believe their eyes, and taking them by surprise, the team spectacularly defeats them in hand-to-hand combat. After catching their breath, the heroes try to understand where the children are located. But perceptive Andy immediately realizes that there were no hostages and that Copley's employer simply set them up. Enraged, she breaks a surveillance camera, through which a startled Copley watches them. And here, near his monitor, we see a funny detail. A photograph of all our heroes, dated June 1864. In the middle of the desert, the heroes gradually move away from the failure of the operation and bury their belongings. Still angry, Andy reprimands her colleagues for not listening to her intuition. Booker apologizes and admits that it's all his fault. Andy is certain that Copley and his team know who they are and therefore must be found at all costs. And then everything can go to hell because she doesn't intend to continue down this line of work. Meanwhile, in the American military operations zone in Afghanistan, in one of the local settlements, US Marines are conducting a search operation for a particularly dangerous terrorist. Civilians are afraid to turn in the criminal, but a woman silently points out his location. During the raid, the terrorist is eliminated, but before dying, he manages to slit the throat of a soldier named Niall Freeman. Losing a lot of blood, she dies. Meanwhile, Andy, Booker, Joe, and Nikki are trying to take a nap in a cargo car. And suddenly, they are all simultaneously visited by a vision of the event that happened to Niall Freeman and how she comes to in the hospital. They try to determine what it was, but Andy is the leader for a reason, as she immediately guesses a possible addition to their squad. According to her, for about 200 years, they haven't found any similar ones, and probably their new colleague is serving as a Marine in Afghanistan. Remembering themselves, Joe, Nikki, and Booker imagine how bad and lonely it must be for her after her first return from death. They also are sure that if they dream of her, she must dream of them too. Andy is very upset that such an important event happened at such an unhappy moment. She decides to personally look for the girl and orders her colleagues to settle in a safe house in France. At an American military base in Afghanistan, two colleagues decide to visit Neil in the hospital. On the way, one of them tells how he was sure she was dead. Entering the room, the friends see her looking a bit confused. Niall is sitting on the bed as if nothing happened, and there is no sign of any injury on her neck. The girl jokes that she probably just had skin transplanted from her butt. We then shift to London for an investment conference where James Copley is also present. Stephen Merrick, head of Merrick Pharmaceuticals, is giving a speech about extending human life. After the event, Copley shows Merrick the recording of the ambush, where the heroes miraculously come back to life after a devastating execution. A stunned Merrick urgently asks to obtain the DNA of these phenomena, but Copley explains that it won't be easy. Meanwhile, at the military base, rumors spread very quickly, and Niall has already become a local star. Colleagues constantly watch her and intimidate her with their looks. During training, a sergeant approaches the girl and orders her to prepare to fly to Germany for assessment. Niall says she is quite healthy, but the chief reminds her of the moment when even the dog tag was removed from her. With the words that you don't come back from the other world every day, the sergeant orders the girl to pack her things. Two military personnel arrive to escort Niall to the plane, but Andy suddenly appears and skillfully knocks them out. The startled girl asks who she is, and Andy introduces herself as the leader of a squad of immortals. After meeting her, she also knocks Niall out. Andy steals a military Hummer and puts Niall in the trunk. On the way, the girl comes to, breaks the trunk with her foot, and falls onto the road. Noticing this, Andy stops and chases Niall. She tries to run away, but Andy simply shoots her in the head. The girl falls dead on the road but starts regenerating in a few moments. Andy is indignant, remembering how long it took the first time. Upon waking, Niall realizes that once again she was killed and resurrected. Andy orders her to get in the car, but the girl tries to resist and stabs her captor in the chest with a knife. Andy easily removes the blade and just throws it away. Shocked, Niall asks who she is, and Andy introduces herself as the leader of a group of immortal warriors. And if Niall still has questions, she must come with her. After some time thinking, the girl follows her. They arrive at an airport guarded by Russian drug traffickers and board a prearranged plane. Niall changes into civilian clothes while Andy finds a bottle of drink. The girl asks how many others like her exist. Andy explains that there are only 4 of them and that Niall is forced to join them. After waiting for Andy to fall asleep, Niall ties her up with a belt and makes the pilot turn back. At that moment, Andy wakes up, orders the pilot in Russian to pretend to be dead, and shoots him with a pistol. The plane begins to fall, and Niall is forced to untie Andy because she herself does not know how to pilot the plane. As if nothing happened, the pilot continues to fly, while Andy dealt with the rebellious girl, breaking arms and legs. Recovering, Niall assumes that her relatives, friends, and colleagues will be looking for her. But Andy convinces her that after what happened, only the fate of a guinea pig awaited her in the army. The heroines arrive at their abandoned safe house near the cemetery, where the others are waiting for them. During dinner, Niall is informed that her team has been together for many years, and the last new one before her was found back in Napoleon's time. They are predestined to always be together, and therefore, when they are apart, they dream of each other. The girl asks if they are destined to live forever, but Andy reminds her that one of them once died. She does not understand why this happened, just that at one point their wounds stopped healing. In the middle of the night, Niall wakes up from a nightmare and reveals that she dreamed of a woman in a submerged coffin. Then she hears the story of the true heroine of her dream named Quinn, who was the first Andy found. Until then, there were only 2 of them, wandering the world together and fighting in countless wars. Once in England, they were accused of witchcraft, and in turbulent times, the punishment for that was death. But no matter how many times or how they were executed, they still survived, thus proving their guilt. Then the church realized that together they were too powerful and decided to separate them forever. Quinn was placed in an iron coffin and thrown to the bottom of the ocean. Afterwards, Andy escaped from prison and for 10 years tried to find her friend's whereabouts, but never could. Since then, Andy has lived with a deep sense of guilt because she shouldn't have let that happen. For over 500 years, her friend has been going insane at the bottom of the ocean, repeatedly dying, resurrecting, and dying again. You wouldn't wish such a fate even on your worst enemy, and that's why they are more afraid of being captured. Suddenly, Copley sets up another ambush, and special forces treacherously surround their hideout. While Niall and Andy are walking in the yard, fighters invade the house and kill Booker. As he regenerates, Andy deals with the attackers, only to discover that the attackers have kidnapped Joe and Nikki. Booker, Niall, and Andy hurriedly leave the house and decide to take refuge in their next hideout, an abandoned mine where they store their memories and centuries-old supplies. Meanwhile, Joe and Nikki are delivered directly to Stephen Merrick. He immediately decides to see with his own eyes the abilities of our heroes and stabs them several times. In front of those present, their wounds instantly heal, and a joyful Merrick anticipates not only the future Nobel Prize, but also enormous profits. In the mine, Andy is surprised to discover that her wounds are not healing. She anxiously steps out, leaving Booker and Niall alone. The girl continues to ask questions about the variations of immortality, and Booker reveals that he had 3 children who died long ago. According to him, Niall needs to get used to the fact that she will remain young forever, and all her relatives and friends will gradually die. He advises the girl not to tell anyone about her secret, as people will beg to share her power, and she won't be able to. And then even relatives will stop understanding her and start to hate her. Meanwhile, Andy visits the pharmacy and awkwardly tries to get some medicine for herself. After all, life did not prepare her for this. Confused, Andy asks the saleswoman to take care of her wound, and she politely helps. Meanwhile, in Merrick's laboratory, Joe and Nikki are undergoing various tests in an attempt to recreate their valuable DNA. Booker informs Andy that he may have found the location of their friends, and they immediately follow her to the London area. At the last moment, Niall refuses to be a member of the team, explaining that she doesn't want this life and wants to return to her real family. Andy allows the girl to leave them, and along with Booker, goes to invade Copley's mansion. As soon as Andy finds Copley and tries to discover the whereabouts of Nikki and Joe with him, Booker treacherously shoots her in the back. Enraged, Andy realizes that Booker set them up, but he claims he acted for their benefit because Merrick may find a way to end the immortality from which she is so tired. But then Booker notices that Andy's wound is not healing and realizes that she is no longer immortal. At that moment, Merrick bursts into the room with his men, but Copley tries to explain to him that Andy has lost her gift and may not withstand his cruel studies. But Merrick's men take Copley down, and Andy and Booker are taken to the laboratory. When Copley wakes up, Niall unexpectedly visits her home and proves to be one of the immortals. Copley convinces the girl that with his actions he only wanted to help the world in the fight against diseases, but now he realized that all the torments of the immortals are happening for Merrick's personal benefit. In light of this, he has radically changed his mind and is willing to help Niall save them. Copley takes Niall to Merrick's office in London. The girl decides to attack him, but instantly dies. Recovering quickly, she skillfully deals with the relaxed guard and takes her friends out of the laboratory. Freed, the team fights through Merrick's army and infiltrates his penthouse. While Booker, Joe, and Nikki deal with the remaining guards, the girls come face to face with Merrick. Knowing that Andy is no longer immortal, he points a gun at her. Saving her friend, Niall rushes toward the scoundrel and falls out of the skyscraper's window with him. Her friends quickly arrive and pull Niall, practically resurrected, from the wrecked car and leave together before the police arrive. As punishment for Booker's betrayal, the group prohibits him from contacting them for 100 years. The rest of the group reunites at Copley's mansion, who shows them an investigative map of their past missions and the benefits they brought to the world. With a renewed faith in their destiny, the group instructs Copley to become the guardian of their secret, as well as to help them in every possible way in the future. 6 months later, a drunk Booker arrives at his apartment in Paris, where he is surprised to find his longtime friend, and the film ends.